Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Minecraft Memories, the show that's a little bit about Minecraft and a little bit about memories. Yesterday, I got my very first subscriber, so I'm probably going to build a monument to him. I know him in real life, or I know him online. Really, the difference between online life and real life is so ambiguous at this point. The lines blurred together that let's give him a little bit of a monument here. He deserves it. What a guy. He said that my voice is nice. Why, thank you, my good sir. I won't leave his name or anything because privacy concerns. I will say I'll leave him a little bit of a metal monument, and around the base I think we can probably put some nice little log. I love logs. How about you? I love logs. Yes, we do. This episode, I think I'm going to talk a little bit about church. And I know that this is a contentious subject because one is never supposed to bring up religion, politics, or race in a video. However, I'm not going to talk about it and give any sort of opinion. I am just going to give a little bit of a history. I was raised Catholic, and I went to Catholic church, every Sunday. There was a brief period there where we were going a little bit more frequently, but sometimes you hear horror stories about churches, and I had no problems with it. I made a lot of friends in the church. I had some fun experiences. One of them that comes to mind is Vacation Bible School. Now, for those that don't know, in the summer, the church kind of has a little bit of a struggle because the kids and their schedules are a little bit off kilter, what with being out of class. So in order to keep the little heathens from sinning too much, they create Vacation Bible School, which is a fun little sort of week-long day program that encourages fun activities, scavenger hunts, arts and crafts, with a little bit of a biblical twang to it. Honestly, I loved Vacation Bible School. Arts and crafts were my jam. You get to spend time with friends, and the activities were usually pretty enjoyable. I don't even remember too much of, the religious part kind of fades away and takes a back seat to the actual entertainment portion. I think it was third grade, actually, where my friend Malcolm, I mentioned him earlier, he's the one that is now no longer out in public because he got caught selling a drug that's really bad. Heroin. But he used to live right behind my trailer. When I was living in the trailer, he was right behind it. And in third grade, he would go with me in the mornings to my Vacation Bible School because ours was earlier, and I would go with him to his in the afternoon. I think it was, the reason I think it was third grade is because I remember they delineated us up in his by age and class, and I guess technically since it was summer, we weren't in any grade, but we were in, I guess I just got out of third grade, was going on to fourth. He just got out of first, was going on to second. But they allowed us to be in the same class because we were friends. I didn't know anyone else in the church that was there. I mean, just to keep us, they kept us together, and that was pretty cool. But that week, let's see, I went to 3 of the Catholic Vacation Bible Schools and two of his, because we were actually leaving on Wednesday during the day and driving all the way down to Florida to visit my grandparents. We were visiting them there in the house that I'm currently in. That was a vacation. This is, me assisting them. Let's get a little bit of bug action. Maybe a hermit lived up here. Threw a book there and a book there, and yeah. But I remember some of the volunteers there were pretty jealous about the fact that we got to go to Florida. Rightfully so. Florida's a wonderful place to go to vacation. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of beaches, a lot of sun, a lot of sand. You go snorkeling, go swimming in the ocean. Um, I guess I should probably do more with this monument. I'm going to make this the Amp Monument. He gets a painting, and he gets a sign. Another story I have from Vacation Bible School. I remember we were outside, and there was this old witch. She had a couple of daughters who were none too nice. And I was like reflecting a watch or something in her eye. And then when she looked, it kind of turned away so I wouldn't get caught. And then she came up to me, and I think she said, "How dare you do that?" And, you know, I'd been caught. I knew it. But Mom jumped to my defense and said something like, "Hey, don't yell at my son. It was an accident." I didn't correct her. So, you know, I left her. Because I wasn't going to get in trouble, man. So I let her take the anger from my mom. It's like, well, you just make sure he's all right. I guess Mom assumed that it was an accident, that my wrist had been moving in the sun, but no, it was an active attempt on my part. I wasn't that kind to her. Sorry about that. Oh, you can't go through those. Okay. I remember a scavenger hunt too, and I guess I was enthusiastic about it, but I've never been one that's very good at competing with others. And this was a competition scavenger hunt where you had to quickly run and find the desired objects. And everyone else had like 2 or 3, and they felt sorry for me, and they said, "Hey, this object is a fish. Where would you find a fish?" And there was a puddle on the ground with some hay on it. And yeah, obviously it was covering the little toy fish. So I was going over there, but some of my peers ran and beat me to it, and one of them had obtained the fish. So I didn't win that scavenger hunt. But it's okay, because sometimes, you know, the best scavenger hunts are non-competitive. I love geocaching, and that's pretty much the best scavenger hunt that you can ever have. You know, it's a global scavenger hunt. And it takes you to all sorts of cool different terrain and locations. The church that we went to had a little grotto behind it, and it had like Stations of the Cross. And it was weird. It was like, here's the church, and then here was the graveyard, and then behind the graveyard to the side of it was like wooded area, and I didn't even know it was back there for the longest time. I think we had like an Easter something or another out there, and that's when I learned about its existence. The rival that I had, Nicholas, last name withheld, actually went to the same class as I did, same church, and honestly, we did Sunday school. Sunday school was admittedly a little boring for me. I don't know of anyone that, you know, I hope that's not a contentious opinion. I don't know of many people that look at church Sunday school and think, oh wow, that's an enjoyable way to spend time. But maybe there are, and if there are, I don't fault you for it. Everyone's got different opinions. I didn't enjoy it. It was kind of boring to me. And then it got downright difficult. And when I was 13, that was when we had confirmation. For those of you that don't know, confirmation is the Catholic equivalent of a bar mitzvah. It's when the church acknowledges you as being an adult in their eyes, and they, I guess, consider your sins to be adult, because the way they have it, you're not considered an adult in the age of reason until a certain point, and I believe that is what it is. So with most of church school, you think, you know, you go there for an hour, goof off, or just kind of sit in the back of class and try not to say too much, and then they let you out. But at age 13, man, that's when church school got, ooh, has it always been there? It probably has. Was that the thing that I put? I think I placed that, didn't I? No, that's original. Okay, that's gonna stay there. That's a protected landmark. It's a national park. This was a lot more difficult, though. The church school. We actually had homework, which seems unbelievable to some, but we had to read books. I believe we had to read one of the Infernos, or one of the Divine Trilogy, Dante's Inferno, and we had to discuss it in class. There's one part I'm really glad I didn't have to go through, because I've got a little bit of let's just say, self-esteem issues sometimes, and you had to go have an interview with the priest, and he asked you a question. The question, they said, was, well, he asked you a bunch of questions, but one of them that was, like they said, the most difficult was, let's pretend you died today. You got to the pearly gates, and then God asks you, why should I admit you to heaven? How are you supposed to answer that, especially at age 13? I was already dealing with a lot of, let's say, bad mental stuff at that point, and trying to evaluate myself in what I would assume were God's eyes. That's not something that's not a lot of fun, man. Luckily I didn't have to do that. The interview process, my friend Jimmy and I were the last ones to be interviewed, and neither of us had to go do it. We still got confirmed though. Jimmy and I stood in the back of class, and we really weren't taking it all that seriously. I remember they talking about sins and bad things to do, and they said, killing people was bad, and all of the class was like, oh, I've never killed anyone, and I never would kill anyone. And then, he and I were like, yeah, killing's bad. Abusing people is a sin, and then everyone's like, oh, I've never abused someone. Yeah, abusing people is a sin. And Jim and I were like, yeah. And then they're like, cussing is taking the Lord's name in vain, and even if you don't say God in vain, cuss words are still considered part of that. And everyone was like, yeah, I hate cussing. Cussing's bad. And Jimmy and I just looked at each other and almost broke out laughing, because we were, let's say, not the most saintly of people in terms of what we said. Man, Jimmy, he and I met because our sisters were on a soccer team together, and we would frequently go to games with each other. And while we were forced to go to these boring games, it's not much interesting watching elementary school girls play soccer, but his sister and my sister were on this team. And we would just fight. It was straight up almost like Fight Club. We would just roughhouse, throw dirt at each other, beat each other up, roughhouse, tumble down a hill. We'd come down. Never made each other bleed, but this is actually the origin of one of the more embarrassing stories I have. Because we were fine, it was pretty much anything goes. Obviously, if one of us is bleeding or seriously injured, we stop. But because I was older and I had more mass on him, I often had the advantage. However, this day I decided to do a little bit of a psychological warfare. Jimmy brought his bike to the field, and when I saw that, the only thing I could think of was, you fool, you brought your bike. How stupid do you have to be to bring your bike? You know I'm just going to steal it. And I did. I stole his bike and I ran it around the field, and he chased me. There was another kid there. I don't remember what his name was. He was at a few of the games, and we were, on friendly terms, but I just don't remember much about him. And he chased me, and the field had this asphalt ring around it that you could walk or run around, and I took it on the victory lap. But that bike, it turns out it wasn't his bike. Yeah, the referee had to stop the game because some crazy kid was stealing his bike, and I have a laugh about it now, but back then it was just, that was so embarrassing. Mom, she made me sit beside her for a little while, but she thought it was too funny, and she thought the embarrassment was punishment enough, and let me go back to playing, thankfully, because it was really embarrassing. I kind of like that. Bookshelves, if you can't tell, are one of my favorite decoration pieces because they're a solid block, and yet they can make it you can make a library, you can make a study. Bookshelves say a lot about an area. They show that people have been there and been there long enough to acquire large collections of knowledge. Those soccer games, man, I used to hate them, and I think if I were to go to them today, I think I would still hate them. They were really boring. The field I said, the field, they had a ring around a large asphalt one. Well, at the bottom of that was a ditch that the water would accumulate on it after it rained. And I guess someone had been golfing there because you often found golf balls. And I would always make it a personal mission to collect as many as possible. Of course, Mom wouldn't let me keep any of them because they're pretty much trashed here. But I'm going to make a little bit of, I think I'm going to make like a smuggler's den down here. She wouldn't let me keep any of them, but I would still sometimes be allowed to take a few home. Well, I remember this one time, it was a pretty bad day. I didn't find any golf balls, and this kid I was hanging out with, I think it's the same kid, I can't remember his name, found one. And I'm not proud of it, but I pretty much said, if you don't give me that golf ball, I'm no longer your friend. He's like, oh, I don't care, you can have it. And that made me feel like a real heel, because it's like, oh geez, did I just do that? I was in elementary school, but that's no excuse. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to make someone choose between friendship and a freaking golf ball. Another embarrassing moment. I guess soccer is just a really embarrassing time for me. I found a bunch of golf balls, and I found this convenient utensil to hold them. And then I brought it back, and Mom was like, Kyle, put that down. I was like, why? He was like, that's a cup. I'm like, it doesn't look like any cup I've ever drank out of. And I thought about drinking out of it. It's not that kind of cup. It was the kind of cup that you use to protect a part of your body if you're a boy. And I guess one of the football players had left it there. And I was carrying it and touched it. And she made me wash my hands. Rightfully so. That's pretty gross. Then, I used to actually play soccer when I was in elementary school. I played it for 1 year. And I was the kind of player that they didn't put on the front lines. They set me in the back, and they said, yeah, you can be defender. Defender's pretty much like a discount goalie. You're there. The goalie is the good player. If you're a defender, you're the guy that exists to stop the ball. Maybe you're kind of a distraction. They say like the shortstop or the what was it, the outfielder? Outfield is the bad one. I used to play baseball too, and I was an outfielder. But this was I remember it was like they were playing soccer, and me, the other defender, and the goalie were just sitting in the box picking clovers and making like little flower crowns from the clover flowers. Obviously I wasn't at a competitive league. This was essentially just a way to get the kids out of the house for a Saturday and a few days a week. And then baseball. I was actually 5 when I played baseball, and it might have been softball. It's really hard for me to differentiate between the two, because it isn't the only difference. It's one ball's bigger. I'm pretty sure that's the only difference. I played it when I was 5, and I remember that because some of the kids on our team were bragging about them being 6, and I thought, man, 6 is so old. How did they get that old? Spoiler alert, time. Time is how they got that old. And I eventually wound up passing that 6. I even wound up passing 8, man. But I was really bad at it, and the only real memory I have, I remember getting those little, you love them as a kid, they're like these little juice packs, but they taste like straight up, if you drink them now, it burns your throat afterwards. The aftertaste burns, because I guess they use discount chemicals they got from Indonesia, but I enjoyed it. And that's when I remember one of the kids bragging about being, oh, I actually want the path to go this way. Let's bring it down around here. I remember him bragging about being 6, and I thought, man, that's so old. Another time I remember we were at a game, and I went, and I actually managed to get the ball, but rather than run it to the base, I just kind of, walked it, and I was waving at everyone, because everyone was shouting at me, and, they were excited for me that I got the ball, so I was waving at them. I was waving to my fans. And I remember in the car right afterwards, Mom and Dad being like, Kyle, that's not what you do. That's embarrassing. You should have done better. They were always pushing, and this was one such time. That was not a very good coach that we had, though, because I think he was less. I think he thought we wouldn't understand the game. So what he did was he told us that once you hit the ball, you run around the bases, and you pretended that the guy that just hit the ball after you, or if you're on a base, after the ball's hit, run around the bases, and then pretend the guy that just hit the ball is chasing you, and you have to hit every base. He didn't explain that that's not how it works. I think he was banking on the fact that if enough of the players run around like crazy monsters after the ball's hit, they can't get all of us out because they're little kids, and I guess he expected us to win that way. That was a pretty bad method, in my opinion. And I remember I was thinking, man, I kind of hate this game. This is not a fun game for me to play. I know some people like baseball and softball, and actually if I were to play not on an official team but a bunch of friends, yeah, that sounds actually like an enjoyable way to spend an afternoon. But I remember we never signed me back up for it. I remember the summer approaching, and when they didn't make any mention of it, I was a little bit stoked because I didn't have to go and play that game again. I was, other sports I played, I was in basketball for 2 years in 4th and 5th grade, and that one, I think that's definitely when I could start feeling a little bit of mental issues emerge, because every time I got the basketball, I would try and get rid of it as quickly as possible, and if I got like a foul against me, I would actually just cry. If I shot and missed, I would cry. If I shot and hit, I would cry. I hated being the center of attention like that. It was misery to me. It was pure agony. Why would you do this to me? But, you know, I was there for 2 years. I actually enjoyed the sport. I'm fairly tall in real life, 6'6", and I've always been one of the taller people, so everyone's always assumed I played basketball, but I think they assume that from a physical standpoint, not the mental. I could probably do it now. I wouldn't be good at basketball. I've got that perception anymore, but you know, it's a game that I enjoyed. They also they had my aunt. She's like my half aunt, because my grandpa's daughter, but step grandma as well. For a while there, she was taking karate lessons, and she gave me the lessons an hour a week, and I think it was on a Thursday that they took me over there, and it was, I think, only in the summer. The only thing I remember was doing the poses, like skeet, ray, how, I think that's what they said. Doing the poses. I don't actually remember fighting her, because you're not gonna fight your cousin. I'm glad I didn't have to do that either. I didn't enjoy that much. That was kind of the baseball tier activity for me, where it was just bleh. Anyway, guys, I'm looking at the time, and I've managed to build a few things and throw these glow rods everywhere. I think that's about it for this time, and as always, thanks for watching.